and welcome to Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond, hosted by Mark Kaler. My name is Penka Jane, podcast Deckhand and longtime listener. We'd thank you to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Here's today's catch.
Hello guys, welcome to another installment of Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond. I am your host, Mark Kaler. And today we are still remaining in Beverly, and we have Deckhand Will Rayder with us today. Hey Will, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, Mark?
Great. Actually, I met Will just today. We went out fishing on the Falcon, Dave Marciano's boat, and Will is one of his deckhands. So, Will, let's start way before that. Let's go back to where were you born and what brought you into the industry?
Well, I was born in a hospital in Middletown, Connecticut. I grew up in a town called Deep River, Connecticut. And my father's side of the family is from Rockaway Beach, Queens. We like to refer to it as the Irish Riviera. And my grandfather was a fisherman. And, I grew up, I'd go surf casting with him, and I'd take his rods when he wasn't going fishing, and I'd go down to the bay wall, and I'd fish there. And I grew up right on the shores of the Connecticut River in my hometown of Deep River, Connecticut. So I was like a Huckleberry Finn type river rat, and pretty much every summer I got in trouble every night for coming home late. All I needed was my tackle box and my bicycle and a fishing rod, and me and another buddy, or oftentimes I'd go out alone, to the trout streams or some of the farm ponds, catching bass, pickerel.
I overheard you telling Jesse a story about a little running with fish and game when you were kind of young.
Yeah, I was about 12 years old, visiting some family up on the Cape, being Cape Cod, that is, a town called Chatham. And I was out digging steamers, soft shell clam, we call them steamers, kind of the local name. And I dug up about a 5-gallon bucket full, and when I was done and I was about to go back to the house with my with the bounty that I had just worked my tail off getting, Fish and Game came over and he said, "Hey son, how are you?" I said, "Hi sir." And he asked me if I had a permit. Now, I had no idea really that I needed a permit, and I told him, "No, I don't." And he said, "Well, there's a problem. I'm going to need you to put those clams back." So, I proceeded to kind of dump the bucket and scatter them around. And he looked at the clams, he looked at me, and he said, "No, where you found them." So he stood there while I proceeded to bury each and every clam, spaced apart with the siphon pointing up. And that took me about another couple hours. So once again, I was late for dinner, and the street lights had come on, and I was in a bit of trouble, but I'll never forget that.
Sounds like a pretty good lesson learned.
Yeah, it was a burn. I wish he'd come over while I was digging them rather than waited till I was finished.
And he stood there and watched you put them all back.
Yep, he was probably getting overtime too.
Okay, so where did you go from there?
I started, like I said, I guess my first, I'd call it, quote-unquote, a job. It was with an old man who was a World War II vet who had it's called a scow, which is kind of like a skiff. But that was out of Westbrook, Connecticut, and he would take me out blue fishing. So I'd carry the jerry cans. I would wet the burlap sacks that we'd throw over the fish, and then I'd do a wash down and carry the reels and rods back to the truck afterwards, and he'd bring me out during my summers. And a couple summers after that, I started lobstering on a boat out of the Long Island Sound. I used to have to go and I would take off all my clothes, before I got in the house, and I'd have to walk in through the cellarway because, dealing with the barrels of brined dead skates that would sit on the dock for weeks at a time and fester. It was a pretty ripe job.
And that's what you're using for bait?
Yeah, skates, yeah, which is a small barbless stingray.
How old were you at this point?
I was about 12, 13 then.
Commercial fishing?
Yep.
Yeah. Was you getting paid?
It's kind of funny because I found out afterwards that my mother had told the guy that I would like to do it just for the experience. So when it came time to get paid, he wasn't expecting me to ask, and I asked, and I did the math. He ended up throwing me like a $50 bill, and it worked out to be $1 an hour. But the experience was priceless.
That's good. That's good. Good on your mom.
Yeah.
She just wanted you out of the house. How many kids were there?
There was at that point there was me and my older brother, and then I had 3 older stepbrothers and an older stepsister too.
Okay. All right. So they were trying to get you out of the house.
Yes, very true.
All right. So where do we move on to then?
From there, gosh, I did a lot of fishing for fun, and I did a lot of globe trotting. I don't know what you would say. I traveled a lot. I got myself in some trouble with the law, ran around, and was a carny for a while. I somehow ended up down in the Virgin Islands, and from there, I did a little bit of island hopping because I was causing trouble kind of everywhere I went, and I ended up living on a sailboat on the backside of St. John's in a place called Coral Bay with a bunch of, I guess you would consider them pirates. Did some fishing there, but nothing really to speak of commercially. It wasn't until I moved back to the States that I moved to the area that I'm in now.
No, hold on. You can't just say I was a pirate.
Well, I guess by pirate, we were floating thieves, I guess you might call it. Anything that wasn't tied down.
Pulling up to people's boats.
Yeah, I suppose the statute of limitations might be passed by now. But yeah, anything that wasn't tied down,
Yeah, normally
that was moored.
Normally we record this on my boat. So I'm really glad that we're...
Yeah, cut the anchor line and cut you off the mooring.
Yeah. Okay. But that was wild youth, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The boat that we lived on was called the Death Star. So there was some people dying on the boat.
Some people dying on the boat?
Yeah, there was there was some people that had some pretty bad habits.
Oh, I got you. Not good stuff to be around, or...
Right.
All right, so you come back to the States, you're going to clean up and...
Yeah, so I kind of got my act together a little bit, and right here in Beverly, I started working at a fish market that's actually right around the corner here that we can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Right by the bridge, to the other side of the bridge. It's called the Rowan's Fish Market. And
Therese was just talking about that on her episode, so...
Okay. So yeah, Elliot was maybe the guy that she was mentioning. He's the kind of patriarch of the family, Elliot Rowan, and I worked for his daughter Deb. And I'd sit back there and I'd be, cutting fish, cleaning fish, and shucking lobsters, and I'd kind of watch the boats go by. And I'd wonder why I was in the back of the fish market, when I could have been on one of those boats that was going by. And, I did that for a while. And eventually, through a friend of a friend, I met Dave Marciano, who's the one that we just fished with today when we were tuna fishing. And he and I became, pretty close friends. And he gave me a shot, once again to get back into the industry. And he was running somebody else's boat at this time. He had pretty much sold his permits and was running somebody else's boat, and he was kind of floundering a little bit in his own operation. So he was running somebody else's boat, and we took the boat down to New Bedford, Mass, and we gill netted for monkfish. So we did that for a couple of years, and it was good, fun work. I was happy to get finally out on the water, out from behind a counter and out from the back room of a seafood shop.
Mm-hmm. Where'd you go from there?
From there, I fished for a couple years, and then I went, from the gill netting in the spring, then I lobstered, and then I would do more gill netting for pollock in the winter, and I'd lobster right through interspersed, and I was kind of a boat whore, you know what I mean? I'd bounce from, boat to boat, and, it got to a point where it was kind of hard to stitch together a living. My responsibilities were getting greater, I never really had a bill in my name till I was about, 31 or 32 years old. Cell phone, and then I was actually paying rent because I was stationary for the first time in my whole life, being expected to pay my own bills. So the long and short of it is that it was getting harder and harder to stitch together, bouncing boat to boat. So I was challenged by a guy that I know, and he said, you should get your application to become a merchant mariner. And he's like, you'll just get it. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I've been holding it fucking back. Oh my God. It's been hard to talk.
It's a fishing, commercial fishing.
Yeah,
show.
say no more. Say no more. So this guy's like, you'll just take the application, you'll throw it on your fucking table. It'll get covered with other bullshit, and then, you'll forget about it. And I took that as a challenge, you know what I mean? This guy kind of knew me. He was reading my mail. So, I'm like, I'll show this guy. So I filled out the application, and, sure enough, the Coast Guard denied it because of my, let's call it, checkered past. But I was able to talk to some different people, and through like a licensed clinician who was a friend of mine actually wrote a letter for me, talking about how I had kind of turned my life around. And through getting, letters of recommendation or of endorsement from a couple different people in kind of high places, professional, people, I was able to get something that's kind of the equivalent of a pardon, I guess you would call it. I got what they call the proof of cure from dangerous drug and alcohol abuse from the government, So then I was able to resubmit my paperwork to the Coast Guard, and they signed me off on it. And given all the sea time that I had, I got my unlimited able-bodied seaman's license, which basically means that I can work as a deckhand on commercial ships and research vessels, tugboats, bulk carriers, any type of commercial ship. And the unlimited part of it means that there's an unlimited tonnage, because normally the licenses are limited by what size boat you can be on, which is determined by the tonnage. And so given all the sea days that I had from fishing, I was able to get the unlimited tonnage as well as unlimited waters license, because then it's delineated between, inland and then near coastal, and then there's unlimited. So basically,
you can go to Beijing.
Yes, I've been to Shanghai, but not Beijing.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Up the Yangtze River.
So good on you for accepting the challenge.
Yeah.
And taking it that way. And it sounds like it took some steps to get it done. Well, obviously it took some steps to get it done.
Yeah, definitely.
But did you start using the license then?
I did, yeah. Then I did. I started working the license, and I was still lobstering, and I started literally moonlighting at a place called Boston Line and Service Company. It's out of Black Falcon Terminal in South Boston. And what we would do was stores loads. So a big ship would pull in, and they'd be at anchor, because they couldn't get into some of the shallower ports. So we would bring out, the pilots, or we would bring out their stores loads. So all the food and water and different, I don't know what you would call it, I suppose, just different supplies that they would need, so we'd run all those stores loads. And another big part of the job was taking a little skiff out, stretching out what we call oil boom. So when a oil barge or an oil ship or a fuel ship, something with petroleum, would be loading or discharging, we stretch out a floating perimeter around it in the event of a spill or somebody attempting to approach the ship. It would hang up.
Doesn't that take an additional notch on that license?
Well,
or you were the deckhand on there?
Right, I was the deckhand there, but what I have gone on to that job, that was just, like I said, moonlighting, as a deckhand there, and it was my first kind of foot in the door of the commercial industry, and we'd stretch the boom around. Later on, I would go on to working on the ships that I was stretching the boom around, and working on the barges that I would stretch the boom around. But I guess the point I'm illustrating is this job, it was kind of bottom of the barrel. So I would do it at night, and I was exhausted from lobstering, and I was the new guy, so they'd call me, in February when it was 2:30 in the morning, blowing 35 knots, and they needed somebody to go and stretch this oil boom, around a ship that was coming in. And I didn't have, any experience in the industry, so I had to take any shit job that came my way, And I couldn't have seen then how that was going to end up opening doors for me, but it did, because the next place that I applied to, which was a tugboat company and terminal where they took in scrap and delivered scrap and all sorts of different stuff in New Haven, Connecticut. It was called Gateway Terminal, which they had a bunch of tugboats. But when I called and applied there, the guy that did the hiring knew the guy that had hired me from the company in South Boston, so it was like I was hired immediately. So all those, hours of getting up after lobstering all day at 2:30 in the morning to rush down to Boston to, boom out an oil barge at 2:30 in the morning, 35 knots of wind, 10-degree weather, it had paid off. So I got a job working on the tugboats out of Gateway Terminal. And I did that for a couple years, and I got bored. That's kind of a big part of my story, is I get bored and want to see different things. So I had my heart set on Alaska at that point, and I was going to work for a company called Crowley that was big and had a lot of business up in Alaska moving fuel. And they had hired me, but I had planned for years, not years, but I'd thought about for years and had planned for about a year taking my son, who was then 9 years old, to walk something called the Camino De Santiago in Spain, which is a medieval pilgrimage route. And I had taken a 40-day block of time that I was going to dedicate to kind of a rite of passage type pilgrimage walk with my 9-year-old son. And Crowley had hired me, and they wanted me to fly out on the same day that I had my flight to Spain. So I opted out of working for Crowley in Alaska, and I took my son to Spain. But I kept pumping out applications, and I applied for Foss Maritime out of Seattle, who also worked in Alaska.
Before we move on to that, let's talk about that Spain trip with your son.
Absolutely.
How cool was that?
Trip of a lifetime for both of us. It was absolutely magical. Absolutely magical, to see a 9-year-old little boy, he inspired, because there's tons of people from all walks of life and all different countries all around the world. It's truly I would call it, I guess, an international phenomenon where you have all these people merging, getting together, sharing one pretty much common goal to make, this pilgrimage route. So I felt like, from a cultural standpoint, that it was, he could learn more from that than X amount of years of schooling. I felt like it was very important. And me being a mariner, being away a lot of the times, it was hard to spend a lot of consistent time with him. So I felt like this condensed a lot of our relationship into a nice, long, condensed, memorable journey.
How was the walk? I mean, explain that to us a little bit. You'd walk for the whole day and stay where?
Yeah, it was arduous, but I think it was so cleansing and cathartic in the sense where in daily life there's always this buzz and this rush. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I got to do this, and kind of get that monkey mind and motor-minded. I hate to call it ADD, but just there's so much going on, and when you're on this pilgrimage, on this trail, it's what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wake up today, and then I'm going to walk, and then at some point mid-morning I'll get a coffee, and then I'll walk some more till I get hungry, and then I'll eat, and then I'll walk some more till I get tired, then I'll find a place to stay, and I'll sleep. And what they have is you get what's called a pilgrim passport, where you go and you sign in at one of the cathedrals and you get a pilgrim passport. So all along the walk, different places that you stop, you get these stamps in your passport, and you arrive at what's called an albergue at night or in the afternoon, and it's a hostel specifically set up for the pilgrims on this pilgrimage. and it's, €5. A lot of them are donativo or a donation. So there's all these little places, little hostels that they call albergues along your path that you can go stay at, and a lot of them provide meals and a nice clean place to rest. And the next day, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to walk till I get hungry, then I'm going to eat, then I'm going to walk till I get tired and sleep. So you get into this natural rhythm of doing that, and just kind of the rest of that whole fast-paced and what am I going to do stuff starts to melt away. And it was an excellent time for a lot of reflection, a lot of bonding with this kid. And it was amazing to see a 9-year-old boy persevere, because there was people dropping out all the time. So he gave everybody around him strength. We were in some of the local newspapers over there. Like, people heard that we were coming before we arrived at the next albergue. And gosh, I couldn't even really begin to describe just some of the amazing, synchronistic type instances of, just the magic of the world revealing itself to us. And, I know he'll never forget it. That's for sure.
It sounds to me like it was an incredible trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, to spend that much time with your kid in that kind of a foreign environment, and I love the way that you described that. What am I going to do today? I'm going to wake up and walk. That's kind of what we do anyway, but you had the clear sense because that's all that you were doing. Every day we wake up and work, but different. I totally get what you're saying. I love what you're saying, and thanks for taking the time to explain that. Now, if one of our listeners, because this is obviously going to inspire somebody to want to do something like that, what kind of a package? I mean, just a ballpark figure did this cost you to spend these 40 days with your son?
Well, if I was to try to break it down, I mean, we all know that airfare is cheaper the earlier you buy it, so I would encourage somebody to, set a time, put aside the time, get the airfare taken care of. So you get the airfare out of the way, which was the most expensive part of it. You can literally get by on, I would say, $25 a day. So whatever amount of time you're able to allow yourself to do it, I would say $25 a day per person would cover it.
How far on the walk did you get?
We walked from Irun, or really we walked from Hendaye, France. So we started pretty much in Irun, which is in the Basque Country in northeastern Spain, and we walked across the bridge into France, and then we started going back towards Galicia, which is extreme northwestern Spain. So we walked what's considered the northern route because we're both kind of beach bums, and I want to be by the water and see the fishermen. That's something that I can backtrack a little bit, but when I was 10 years old, I went on a family vacation with my father and my older brother and one of my cousins. And we were all over Spain and Portugal, and we were down in what was the name of the town? We were in a town in Portugal. Why is it escaping my name? There's Lagos, yeah, like Nigeria, the same Lagos, and everybody was gonna go snorkeling. And I was transfixed by the men fishing on the side of the river, and I wouldn't leave. And I was 10 years old, so my father, he kind of trusted me. He knew I was a reasonably savvy kid. So he's like, all right, well, we'll see you later. And they left me on the side of this river in Lagos, Portugal for a half a day while they went out to the coast and snorkeled. So, yeah, so on this walk, we took the northern route, which kept us closer to the ocean. And what was where did we walk from? Okay, we walked from Hendaye, France, all the way to Finisterre in Spain. So Santiago de Compostela is the town where the pilgrimage allegedly ends, where there's a big cathedral, and there's a story that ties in with St. James, who was the first martyred saint in Christendom. But there's also that the pilgrimage route was older than Christianity itself, and it predates Christianity, and people were doing it during Roman times. So Finisterre literally means end of the earth, because in Roman times they believed that that was as far west as you could get. So literally they called it the end of the earth. So we walked from France all the way through northern Spain, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean at the end of the earth. And then it's customary to you kind of burn a piece of clothing or something that you cherish, and it's somewhat of a rite of passage, because I knew that I was going to be going to sea and start going for longer stretches, because like I said, I had gotten hired by Foss, so when I came back I was going to be leaving for longer stretches, and I was working in the Arctic. So basically I had my son burn his favorite shirt, and I explained to him that it was time for him, that he was going to have to take care of his little sister and his mother a little bit more, and it was kind of like a rite of passage type thing. He was only 9 years old, but he was a pretty precocious kid, and he was ready to shoulder a little bit more responsibility when he went home. And particularly after, persevering and enduring that long journey, I felt it was time to kind of have a little talk with him like that.
So you finished it.
Yeah.
You finished it.
Yep.
There's a movie about this walk. Isn't there a documentary or?
Yeah, there's a Martin Sheen movie, which I haven't seen it, but it's called The Way.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
And that's when you mentioned the end of the earth and the rite of passage at the end, it triggered that memory of watching. Yeah. So great. So then you started going back. You went north. You went to Alaska.
Yeah, when I got back, I flew up. I went out to Seattle and did all the paperwork, and then we went up to Anchorage. Then from Anchorage over to Kotzebue, and then from Kotzebue up to the Red Dog Mine, which is about 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle.
100 miles north of Kotzebue. I was just there a month ago.
Yeah, you were in Kotzebue?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting place.
Oh boy. So you were working out of the Red Dog Mine then, or?
Yep. At the Red Dog Mine, basically there's an inland mine, lead and zinc, and I think some silver and maybe platinum, but predominantly a lead and zinc mine, and there's no deep water port. So they would truck all the ore that's probably 50 miles inland out to a shore facility, and then they had big conveyors that would bring it out, and they would load it onto these barges that we would move with a tugboat out to the ships that would wait about 3 miles out where they had deep enough water, and we would tie alongside these ships and offload the ore onto the ships that would head to their different ports of call.
Okay.
So yeah, that was some pretty interesting work, because what would happen is we couldn't come alongside the ships if there was anything over 2 feet, any type of swell or wave action over 2 feet. So what would happen is that we wouldn't be able to do it, for hours or days at a time, and we had all these quotas we had to meet. So once conditions were right, we would work 24 hours around the clock. So it would get pretty dangerous. Foss probably wouldn't like me saying this, because there are Coast Guard regulations about how long you're supposed to be able to work, at a time without getting rest. But we'd work pretty much around the clock, and what had happened is you'd get so caffeinated so that you wouldn't get killed, so you could stay awake and cognizant and have your, situational awareness about you. So then you would never know what was going to happen. They'd come up and tap you on the shoulder or something and say, "All right, you, Rayder, go take a nap for a couple hours." It's like, that sounds, fine and well and good, but I just had 9 cups of coffee. So 2 hours would go by, you'd stare at the top of your bunk, and then you'd be back out on deck. So it was a grind, when the conditions were met such that, we could work. But I did that, for a couple months till the end of the season, and then we came back down, had to cross the Gulf of Alaska, and you had to time that pretty good, late November, and then we'd shoot over into the inner passage and back down to Seattle.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those tugs up there, and it's long work. But let's move to a little different area here, Will. Obviously, you've had a lot of time at sea at this point, in and out. Do you remember the first time you got scared?
Geez, the first time I got
The first
scared.
time.
Yeah, I guess I do. I was right out here. We went to do. I'd been lobstering, and as you're lobstering, you're hearing about tuna this, tuna that, and you get sick and tired of hearing it. And the tuna game, nobody really makes any money at it, but everybody kind of thinks. We call it tuna wishing. So on the lobster boat that I was on, we decided that we were going to make a run out to George's Bank, and it's like a 40-foot boat, and you're going out 120 miles at least, and the weather got bad there, and it was all coming into our face on the way home. So just pounding for 24 hours, just getting the shit beat out of you, and then start having engine trouble. And just being so seasick to the point that you can hardly move. I remember being a little scared then, for sure.
Was it a good trip? Otherwise?
Well,
Tuna
it was
wishing?
good. It was good because we came back, but we didn't catch anything, and just got the shit beaten out of us.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a little scary, just because when you're that far out in a small boat. That's the first time I'd say I was scared.
So going back to when you got off the tug, when at what point did you decide to come back east? Because you were there for a while.
Yeah, I came back east, and what had actually happened to me is between backpacking across Europe and then working up in the Arctic and hauling lines, and before that working on a tug, I had ruptured a couple discs in my back, and it's kind of unclear to me when it actually happened, but I started having injections in my back. And when I came back east after doing the Alaska thing, I had told them on my way out, that I wasn't averse to any international trips, and I knew that they had been doing work in West Africa at the time, and there was a big Ebola scare going on. So I specifically put in the email to the company that I wasn't afraid to go up the Congo River or whatever it was they had going on in West Africa, and that any of the longer international trips, basically, I wasn't averse to that. So what I ended up doing was getting on a trip where we were leaving out of Seattle to go to Shanghai to pick up a load of barges to bring back to Vancouver. And I didn't give myself enough time to heal from the back stuff that I had going on, and I only came back from the Arctic for about, I think I was home 6 days before I flew back out to Seattle. And that was kind of a nightmare, scary trip, because I got past Midway Island, and all the cortisone injections that I had like the third one. The first one lasted probably 45 days, and then the second one lasted, I'd say, about a month. And then this third one that I had in that 6-day period when I was home only lasted about 15 days, which got me out into the middle of the Pacific, where kind of the full brunt of 3 ruptured discs hit me, and the nerve pain was excruciating. I don't know if any of you listeners understand nerve pain of 1 ruptured disc and the sciatica that comes along with it. I had 3 of them, and that hit me full on. And when we crossed the Pacific, it was a 30-day trip, and I think about 9 of the days were under 10-foot seas, and we call them Uke tires. I don't even know what that stands for, but big like excavator tires around the outside of the tug, and they were chained to the hull. And because of all the seas that we were taking, the tires were ripping off, so we had chains banging off the hull. So not only do you not get good rest when the seas are high like that, but then with the chains banging. So we'd wait for weather windows, and I'd have to put on a harness and climb over the side, get tied in to grab a hold of these chains and then tie them off in the hopes that we could get them to stop banging on the hull so that we could sleep, during our trip. across, and I had the ever-increasing nerve pain shooting down my leg, which feels kind of like somebody's going down through your leg with an electrified wire that's also heated very hot. And they call to shore to call like a doctor. You know, they have a different health force or some sort of doctor that's on call 24 hours. And the only prescription that they were allowing me to have was prednisone, which is a pretty powerful steroid, which for me I had kind of adverse reactions to, where it made me not able to sleep and made me very agitated. But that was what we had to get me to China. And it was this was kind of hell, because it was right around Christmas time, and the captain, who was kind of a tyrant, was convinced that I just wanted to go home to my family for Christmas, which you know, he wasn't believing it, because when you have back pain, you can't just point and say this is where it hurts. So I had to pull some strings, and I had to pull some serious strings, and basically go over his head and call shoreside go email shoreside and tell them that I was going to get, you know, higher authorities involved, and that I was going to, I attempted to get in touch with the embassy in China, and I finally was able to get through to shoreside and explain kind of the gravity of my situation. And I didn't have a visa to set foot in China. So what ended up happening is they sent out a launch, or a boat, with a whole bunch of Chinese military. So in the condition that I was in, I could barely get off the boat, and I had, you know, was looking down the barrel of a bunch of different assault rifles, and I was brought ashore to this communist public Chinese hospital with a doctor that was picking his nose. There was fucking blood on the walls, and they proceeded to give me a couple CAT scans. And on the CAT scan, it revealed, you know, clean as day. I still have photos of the CAT scans. I don't have the actual CAT scans, but clear as day, you know, the fully ruptured discs. And I got escorted back to the ship, you know, like I said, because I didn't have the visa, and I wanted to, you know, beat the captain over the head with the view of the CAT scan with the ruptured discs, like I said, because he was saying that I just wanted to get off the boat because it was Christmas time. So I showed him that, and they were able to arrange to get me a temporary visa so I could fly out from Shanghai. And that was like a $9,000 plane ticket, because, you know, there was it was in courts whether or not who should pay for the plane ticket, and I had to have a reclined seat. So it was like first time I'd ever been in first class on a jumbo jet, where I had my own like kind of cubicle type thing that was reclined, and you know, movies, waited on hand and foot. It was interesting.
Did you self-medicate on the way back over?
Yeah, I sure did. And I hadn't medicated in about 5 years at all with anything. So when they brought me back to the hospital, I was kind of against taking any type of narcotic painkillers. But I was in so much pain, you know, I took a shot with anti-inflammatory. And then what I did give them a pass for, was okay with, was to give me some benzodiazepines, or like a Valium. And then they gave me a prescription for Flexeril, which is a muscle relaxer. So I was avoiding, you know, the prescription narcotics, but I took the Valium and the Flexeril, which kind of opened the floodgates. And then, you know, there was a lawsuit involved with, you know, being injured at sea and a Jones Act claim. And I had myself convinced that I needed to fill the prescription for the Percocets that they had given me, because I couldn't make a claim that I was in such pain if I wasn't, you know, filling the pain pill prescriptions. So I started stockpiling them, because I still wasn't taking them, because I didn't want to be, you know, self-medicating, because as I kind of described before, that proof of cure, I wanted to keep that proof of cure as far as the Coast Guard was concerned. And, you know, through dealing with, you know, a bunch of emotional pain, because when I got back, it was just after Christmas time, and my family went on a ski vacation, and I was home alone. I couldn't stand up for more than 2 minutes at a time, because of the pain from the 3 ruptured discs. So my family went away. I was all alone, and I ended up actually getting the stomach bug, which, the norovirus. So I had, let's say, had it coming out of both ends, could hardly make it to the restroom down the hall, and was just in a weakened state. And I started taking the Percocet painkillers, and I'd say it was more from the mental anguish and the emotional pain than the physical pain, which I'd kind of grown accustomed to. But being separated from my family and just a lot of anguish that was associated with different things that were going on in my life. And I ended up actually accidentally overdosing and being found in my bed unresponsive. I'd actually had a heart attack and had pretty much died. I had to have chest compressions and be resuscitated. Kind of broke my breastbone, which, they did a good job resuscitating me, which I think is one of the things that happens. But like I said, I had a heart attack, so I was in a coma for a few days, and I woke up in the hospital. And I could say honestly that after coming through that, I was still in all the back pain, but I can just remember being in tears, thankful for every trivial annoyance and nuisance in my life, and everything that kind of used to piss me off, I was okay with because I was alive. And that was a long recovery, because there was some conflict between who was going to pay for the back surgery. So the company that I had been working for, and then the insurance companies were going back and forth. So I literally languished, I suppose, from December all the way till I think March 27th was when I actually finally had the surgery. And that was a long time, to not be able to stand up for more than 2 minutes at a time. So my life was really reduced down to, what I would do. It was almost an outing to go to Walmart and ride one of the carts, the motorized carts. That was the extent. That was like going to Disney World for me, because I was pretty much housebound. And for me, being a guy that, had just backpacked across Europe and had been commercial fishing all over, being all over the world for work, and being up in Alaska in the Arctic, and then going to China, all these different things, to be, have my world constricted down to basically my studio apartment, and then occasionally an outing to Walmart on a motorized cart, was a pretty big shock. So when I finally had the surgery, I guess it was March 27th of 2015, I had a quick recovery period. I took time to go down to Costa Rica, where I used to live, and I kind of rehabbed on the beach in a town called Montezuma. I got to see a bunch of old friends from when I lived down there, and I took some time to really reflect and decompress from all the stuff that I had gone through, with all the pain from the injury, and then the heart attack, and the recovery from all that. I took a month. I took some time to get away, because like I said, my life had been reduced or constricted down to my studio apartment. And when I came back, I had been applying for jobs, kind of a get well type job, something that would have been a little easier on my body, because the fishing and then the tugboat jobs were pretty labor intensive. So I thought that I would scale it back a little bit. Kind of one of the lawyers that was involved with my case was telling me basically that I should not work in the maritime business anymore. And I explained to her, whether it was fishing or working on boats and ships period, that it wasn't my choice. It had chosen me, and I may as well just lay down and die if I wasn't going to go back out to sea. And the lawyer couldn't understand that, and I guess I can't really expect her to. But what I did is I was filling out applications online while I was down in Costa Rica, and I heard back from the University of Connecticut. And I had put in to be a deckhand on their research vessel that was based out of Groton. And I had all but gotten hired, and I had an interview with the gentleman. It was, the Master of Marine, the acronym was MOM, so Marine Operations Manager, so MOM. So I talked to MOM, and it was a guy by the name of Turner Cabanis. And it was interesting, because my address that I had put down on the application, which was in Salem, Massachusetts at the time, he started describing the place where I lived, and he said, oh yeah, there's a pool in the back and it looks like this and on the street. And at first I was taken aback, and I'm thinking, all right, buddy, everybody has Google Maps. But come to find out, this gentleman had lived in the same exact apartment that I lived in Salem, Massachusetts. So there was another connection, kind of like from the time I started in the maritime industry, where I started working for that Boston Line and Service Company, and then I went to the other tug company, and how the guy that did the hiring knew the guy that did the hiring at the other place, and there was always some sort of connection between the people. And this one blew my mind, where the guy had lived in the same apartment, 150 miles away. So I ended up working for the University of Connecticut, and I spent a lot of time working, the mechanical winches, the cranes on deck, and we serviced a lot of the weather buoys, and we were involved in a lot of different, interesting pieces of research. So different higher learning institutions and institutes would rent out the boat, basically charter it, and they'd come and we would bring them out to do whatever research they were doing. And that really whetted my appetite for, just another layer of some of the work that goes on out at sea. So I did that for, the whole summer, and then actually Foss called me back, and I still worked for them, and I went to work for Foss again that fall. So I was back out to the West Coast, and then I came to a point where I had to go back to work for Foss, or I could go work in research again for Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, because I had filled out applications for them. And as I kind of described before, I get itchy feet quick, and there's a lot of room to move around out at sea, so I end up going from one thing to the next, and I ended up working for Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution for the better part of that winter, which that was very interesting. I could get in a little bit more depth about that, I guess, some of the research stuff, but the long and short, once again, is that was incredibly enriching. But I always missed, because I'd get involved with these big companies and a lot of moving parts, and I always missed kind of the camaraderie of small boat fishing where I'd started. There's a lot less personalities to deal with. There's a lot less chain of command. There's a lot less variables, pretty much. And what I felt I got away from when I started working in the commercial world and on tugboats and on some of these big research vessels is that when there would be a problem, a lot of times, particularly I'm going to pick on tugboats, but there'd be a lot of finger pointing, and everybody be trying to pass the buck and see who to blame it on and blame it down the next guy and pass down the blame. And my experience on fishing boats is if something went wrong or something broke or something happened, everybody just fixed it, and there was nothing said about it necessarily. There was no finger pointing. Everybody just skipped over that part of it, and everybody just remedied whatever the problem may have been. And I really missed that when I kind of got out of fishing. So I've always kind of, since then, and I'm back fishing now, but I work, and there's a lot in between. I mean, I ended up working on the Great Lakes, which was interesting. I got locked in the ice for 3 weeks one time. Worked carrying ore from Lake Superior down to some of the steel mills at like Gary, Indiana, Cleveland, Indiana, that fed kind of the auto industry, Detroit, and all these different things. But I always would miss going back to the fishing, so it gets harder and harder, though, to make ends meet, really, and to stitch together a living, because fishing, you end up being owned by one particular boat, and I just haven't been able to stitch it completely together. So I have one foot in the commercial and then one foot in the fishing. Like, I work now for the Military Sealift Command, and I know it gets convoluted because I have done so much jumping around, but I've worked now for almost a year for the Military Sealift Command. But in the time off that I have from working there, the leave, I extend that out as long as I possibly can, and then I'm fishing like a maniac the whole time I'm off. So I'm never really off of work, but I have to take, I'm using air quotes right now, but I have to take time off from my real job to go follow my passion, which is the fishing. And I just hope that at some point in time, I can get it together enough such that I can just fish for a living and not have to go and take these other jobs for these other big companies, in the interest of getting insurance or, how I dare say, put together some sort of a retirement, but it's not really where my heart is. Like I said, I'm kind of straddling one foot in each world, and I guess, my hope is that I can put it together and fish for a living, but I got to live in the real world, and I keep having to go back to carry insurance, or there's something that pulls me back. Right now, a lot of it has to do with being financed with the bank, because I did become a homeowner, and then I sold the house. But at the time I was able to get financed, I had a 2-year linear work history with one company, which, allowed the finance companies enough confidence in me and my income to be able to give me a loan. But without having that 2-year linear history, I don't think I'll be able to purchase again. And it's hard to get that with fishing, something to satisfy them. And then I'm not terribly attentive to the details associated with paying my own taxes and handling some of that IRS stuff either, which is a challenge.
The fisherman's strife all the time, man.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time. Well, let me ask you just a final question.
Yeah.
What's your advice for young guys?
Head down, elbows up, work your ass off. You will get noticed. Don't ever ask when you think we'll be back at the dock. That's kind of a dead giveaway, because when you ask that, something comes up and it ends up taking longer, so just head down, elbows up, work your ass off. You will get noticed, and I encourage anybody, to head out to sea. There's so much work out here, and if you think you have what it takes to, get to a maritime academy or to do something like joining the Coast Guard, like those are very viable options. If that isn't open to you, you can't go wrong, I don't think, with just getting into any type of job. If you can't get on the water, get close to the water. Work on a dock. Work somewhere across the street from a dock, and just move your way towards it. Because like I said, getting back into the industry, I started in a fish market watching the boats go by. So anything you can do to put yourself in proximity to it, talk about it, talk to anybody that'll listen, and if it's your thing, it's going to pull you into it, so just be ready.
I think you started when you were 10 years old on a beach in Spain.
Yeah. Yep. That was on the side of the river in Lagos.
One final question.
Yeah.
Do you want your son to do this?
I do.
Okay.
I really do. I've had him out. He was banning lobsters when he was 7 or 8 years old. He's been out tuna fishing with me. He's I don't want to push it, but I would be very proud to see him find his way on the ocean.
Awesome. All right, guys, this has been another installment of Galley Stories. Do us a favor, please, and hit that iTunes button, give us a like, subscribe, and if you have the time or can take the time, leave us a comment. We'd appreciate it. Will, I thank you a lot for sitting down with us today.
Cheers.
Normally we're on the Gale. We've been running around the East Coast, and currently we're sitting in a rental car. So it's been an adventuresome day.
It was a bit nautical out there today.
It was. All right, guys, we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Galley Stories. We hope you like what the net brought in. Please leave us a review on iTunes. Whether you like it or not, we're not fishing for compliments. Look us up on Facebook and Twitter too, and reach out to us at galleystories@gmail.com.